I bought a house and had a surprise visitor. I bought a house and had a surprise guest. My partner and I recently bought our first home. The day of closing, the selling realtor tells us the seller didn't give her the keys to the house and claims to have never had a garage door opener. When asked about when we could obtain the keys, the selling realtor says that the seller works an hour away with long hours, so we likely couldn't get the keys until 9 or 10 at night. Instead, the selling realtor arranged and paid for new locks on the front door and gave us money to buy garage door openers. So we close on the house and everything else is smooth sailing until I go to set up and turn on our electricity. The electric company says they can't come and turn on our power until the next day, even though I called in the morning. The house also needed a good cleaning, as the seller didn't bother to clean when they moved out. Let me first tell you about the house layout. When you walk through the front door, it opens to the living area with the kitchen to the left, a nice open concept. Part of the kitchen is hidden from the front door due to the stairs leading to the basement, so you can't see the oven or the fridge. The neighborhood is also one of the safest neighborhoods in my area. I had to use the front door to move things in since the locks were installed before I came by, so I didn't bother locking the door. Okay, moving on with the story. Since I didn't have electricity, I decided to start by cleaning the fridge. I turn on a true crime/true horror podcast and get to work. The doors to the fridge are wide open and I'm doing my thing when a shadow appears behind me. I knew this wasn't my partner because he was teaching. I turn around to see a man in a black hoodie and black shorts telling me he is headed to drop off a garage door opener. He drops the opener on the island and doesn't say another word. I probably spooked him just as much as he spooked me because he didn't say another word and ran out the door. It took me a while to compose myself again. I called my partner hoping he was on break to tell him what happened. I also texted our realtor about it. It was a very weird interaction. I thought, what if I just didn't hear a knock because I was in the zone? But he didn't knock. I know this because less than an hour later, another man knocks on the door and explains he is here to drop off a key for the front door. And if he tried the doorbell, I didn't hear it because there wasn't electricity. We were still doing work on the house before we officially move in. I'm now ultra spooked being in the house alone and refuse to listen to a true crime/true horror podcast while the house is empty. Strange Uber ride. This one is fairly tame, but this is my story. About 3-ish years ago, I was out with a girlfriend celebrating Cinco de Mayo. My husband had to work early the following day, so he didn't come along. I'm a pretty friendly gal, so initially the driver's questions didn't really sound any alarms. He asked stuff like, "Why are you alone? Aren't you married? Where is your husband?" I felt fairly confident that he'd back off once I confirmed I was married. As we were driving down a fairly desolate stretch of road, he started to drive really slowly. At this point I was beginning to feel uneasy. There were no other cars, no reason to reduce speed. He noticed that I was keeping my eyes on him when he looked back through the rearview mirror. He suddenly stopped the car and got out. I immediately unbuckled my seatbelt and jumped out of the car too. I just yelled out, "What the fuck are you doing?" He mumbled something along the lines of, "I thought I heard my tire. You didn't hear the tire?" I was like, "No, you should never just get out of the car." The strange thing is that he didn't seem wigged out that I just exited his vehicle. He got back in ready to complete the ride. At this point, my options were either get back in the car without buckling in and keeping my hand on the lock/handle, or 2, staying out on the side of a desolate road, alone, at 2-something a.m. and wait for another car to pick me up. I chose option 1 as I pretended to call my husband, who was totally sleeping, to let him know I was 10 minutes away. The next part is where it surprisingly takes an odder turn. As I'm riding, desperate to get dropped off at home, police sirens go off behind us. The driver panics, looks through the mirror, and starts going on about how the warrants they have against him are false, and how his license should be valid and it's not his fault if it isn't. The cops ask him to step out, realize he's in the middle of a ride, so they ask me to step out too. They search him and his car and arrest him on the spot and take him to jail. His license was also expired for 2 years. What the fuck, Uber? I asked why they pulled him over, and they told me he turned without a signal. I asked them if they drive me home, and they told me they weren't a taxi service. By then I was on a much more vibrant street with well-lit sidewalks. Called another Uber to take me home. Night ended without incident.